Hi, welcome to your first lesson in the Physics of Football project. Today's lesson is titled, What is Force? You can find a copy of these slides and a copy of the lesson plan linked in today's agenda. If you're doing this lesson at home, make sure that you have all of your materials with you, your binder, possibly a textbook, and make sure that you pause the video when told to do so to do certain activities. So today's learning targets are the following. We will be able to explain how balanced and unbalanced forces are related to motion. And by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to state Newton's first law of motion and define inertia. So for today's warm-up, I want you to define force. You can take a guess, write what you know, or look it up. Pause the video, make sure you write today's date, and this is a new project for a new marking period, so you're going to need a new piece of warm-up paper. As a class, we'll go over what force is. If you looked it up, you should have it written down now. So today we're going to be using our book. You'll find that I also have a PDF of the book pages in today's lesson plan. We're going to do a reading strategy on the topic of what is force, so very similar to today's warm-up. You're going to read the reading selection that your teacher gives you with a specific reading strategy. And after reading the part of the textbook, you'll pair up and discuss what you learned and what you felt was important from the reading activity. So this is very similar to a think, pair, share. Now, as mentioned in the entry event, we are going to do various oral communication activities like this for oral communication points, since there will not be a presentation at the end. Today, you're going to be using the oral communication rubric given to you by your teacher. And at the end of the Think, Pair, Share, you will self-grade on how you felt you did in today's oral communication activity and have your partner grade you as well on the same rubric. You'll get a total of 10 oral communication points. Make sure you turn in your rubric and total your points for oral communication today. So here's the rubric to look at before we start our reading activity. Your goal for today is to focus on evidence. What is the evidence that a student can present a perspective with supportive evidence? So you're going to be reading about Newton's first law and inertia today. When you pair share, you should be able to draw on facts and experiences from the reading and demonstrate a clear understanding of the topic. When you're done with your pair share, you're going to grade yourself on this rubric out of 5 points. Your partner will grade you out of 5 points, and you'll have a total score out of 10. So I'm going to draw your attention to the lesson plan, which is also linked in today's agenda. And you'll find this reading selection in your text on either pages 44 through 49, or you're welcome to use this PDF, which will serve the same purpose. Now, for reading strategies, I like to use highlighters, colored pencils, and I also encourage students to write in the margin. So if you're doing this online or you're reading this from your screen, you might want to take notes and jot a few things down. Remember, you're going to pair share on what you learned about force, balanced and unbalanced forces, and Newton's first law. In fact, if you notice, the guide for reading is the same as our objectives for today. So pause the video and take a moment to use the reading strategy of your choice to take notes and be prepared to share what you learned from section 2.1 on balanced and unbalanced forces. Now you'll need to pair up with someone else and share what you learned. If you are doing this at home, you need to consult with your teacher on how he or she would like you to submit a pair share for oral communication points. So we're going to go back to our slideshow, and we're going to take some notes today. So if you're in class, you're going to need this piece of paper printed out in front of you. And if you're doing it online, you can just jot this down on a piece of paper. So this is the simplest way to understand balanced and unbalanced forces. So let's quick recall what the capital N stands for. Does anyone know what a capital N stands for in terms of unit labels? If you guessed newtons, you're correct. So we talked about newtons a little bit in our kinetic and potential energy project, and we often measured weight in newtons. We talked about our mass being pulled down by the force of gravity and our feet exerting a force in newtons on a scale. So newtons can be a force in any direction, push or pull. So in this notes activity, we have different sized arrows represent different types of forces, push or pull. And they have direction, so you'll need to pay careful attention in what direction the arrow is pointed. For instance, this force arrow represents a force of 2 newtons to the right. This arrow represents a force of 4 newtons to the right. If these two forces are added together, do we have balanced or unbalanced forces? And if both of these forces were applied to an object, what direction would the object move? So before we talk about this as a class, take a moment to think through this yourself or with your partner. We'll be discussing the answers shortly, so make sure you pause the video before you go on. All right, so now we're back, and hopefully you've looked at these very, very simple diagrams. So this is kind of like a math problem. 2 plus 4 in the same direction is going to give us an unbalanced force in the direction to the right. So we'll have a force of 6 newtons applied to the right. Now, I might have tricked you on this one because they're the same. However, they're not equal and opposite. They're equal but in the same direction. So in this case, the two arrows, 2 newtons and 2 newtons, are added together for a total of 4 newtons to the right. The object would move to the right. Now, think of it this way. Think of 2 people pushing on a box in the same direction. Would the box move? It certainly would. For our third example, we have 2 newtons to the right. Now we have 2 newtons to the left. Imagine 2 people pushing with the exact same force on a box, but in opposite directions. Common sense tells you that the box probably would not move, and you'd be right. So this is our balanced force. The direction of the object's motion? Nowhere. The object would not move. So these are your most basic notes. We're going to just get started on balanced and unbalanced forces with this document, and it goes in your binder in section 2. So one of the ways we look at different balanced and unbalanced forces is with this very simple to use Phet lab. Now, this might be day 2 of the lesson. Lesson 1 does take a couple of days. And if you are doing the Phet lab, there will be an activity that goes with this Phet lab linked right here in the lesson plan. And again, the lesson plan and the slides we've been using are always going to be linked in your agenda. Okay, so we may take an entire class period to check out that Phet lab. Now, to end lesson 1, we have a couple videos. We have the NFL video linked to Newton's first law, and then we have another video called Fun with First Law. So by the end of this lesson, probably on day 3, you are going to be asked to do an assessment of knowledge and thinking. This is kind of like a little mini quiz, and you may be asked to do it on paper or online. But remember, there's no pre and post test for this project. So you need to treat this assessment like a little mini quiz, and your teacher will be reviewing all of the concepts and objectives from lesson 1 prior to giving this to you. If there's time after the lesson 1 assessment, we might go on to lesson 2, and that will be in a different video. Good luck.